Start a habit of talking to your body. Honey yourself. Talk to your body in the sense of like it being part of you, it being your ally. Say, hey, honey, how are you doing today? Oh, yeah, I can tell that this is hard for you to deal with because, my ego has decided to hold on to all these things, and now this has to go through you. Yes, I know I have sent you through a lot of stress. I know that I wasn't treating you really well. I hope you can forgive me for this. I consciously want to do better. Let's do this together. A warm welcome to all of you to the energy update for week 9. That is the 26th of February till the 4th of March. And guys, this is a phenomenal week ahead of us. It's POOF, but then I decided to call it Winds of Change. So I'm going to call it POOF. Winds of Change are coming. Yeah, this is probably the most significant time of this year. What we are experiencing right now is something that many of you who are following me here aren't really surprised about. And that is that there is a very sudden, a very distinct shift of, we can call it energy, right? Everything is energy, but really mood and spirit. And for some, it's like 180 degrees as I have been preparing you. The good news about this is that what we've experienced as this grind in these last 2-3 months, where it was all about internalizing and reviewing and, like chewing through stuff, is now coming to a completion. So it's like this whole sort of renewal process that we are in on a larger scale is now taking on form, and we will feel this in our personal lives, and it will bring in new hope, new courage, but also new realizations about what is actually going on here. And I know this can be quite concerning for some of you, because there are some things that have been coming forward here in the course of this unraveling of truth. Yes, as I have been calling it for the last 2 years, these confrontations with untruths that are supposed to help us move into more truth for ourselves and collectively, show us basically where our future lies. And at this point in time, all we see is like shards of truth. We see all these broken promises and all these really, really hard to fathom kind of gaslighting pieces. I don't know if you can feel what I am talking about. This realization that some of the things that we were taking for granted, for example, that our governments have our best interest in mind, or that the pharma industry is acting, on behalf of, like, say, the best bioethics and integrity of the medical community. And we've seen lots of different things here in the last weeks, especially if you live in Canada, how this power that was given to the governments through the pandemic can be abused. And this is something shocking for us, because many of us have actually experienced this in relationships before. And it's very, very hard to wrap your mind and your body and your emotions around this, when the one thing that you didn't want to question, the one thing that you wanted to believe in, namely that our, say, democracies are here to protect our integrity, are here to protect our freedom and to protect truth. And that is now becoming very obvious that that is not the case. All right, so governments have not only shown this here throughout the pandemic by adopting quite non-integrous ways of coercing and persuading and sometimes even forcing people into let's say, doing things to their body or doing things to their children. And it is really, really murky and muddy in these last 2 years and required a lot of courage and strength to walk through this with maintaining your own integrity. And this is basically now the energy of this change. It's literally showing you how all these internal cues and these doubts and these I want to say your inner guidance, how that was actually true, and how you are now sitting in front of this chaos, yeah, where people in your environment, your loved ones and so forth, kind of made fun of you or went into confrontation with you over your views, and now you need to kind of de-escalate the whole thing. And this is something here that when you look at the collective, that is not going over smoothly, guys, because there's something about the ego that you are all familiar with, I'm sure, and that is that it really doesn't want to be wrong. One of our biggest fears really is to be wrong, yeah, the fear of making a mistake. And so you're up against a, sort of like 80% of the population around you insisting on that all these measures and all these things that we were told were in our best interest, that they are justified, that they are based on science, that, all the things in regards to censoring and disinformation, that is the right way to go, and that there is a righteousness about that, and that it all leads to, our societies become more integrous or, more safe. And this is all falling away now. So the reason why this is significant is because for many of you here, these last 2 years was a severe sort of culmination of all your life's experiences, honed in, focused on, this whole sort of pandemic handling. So I want you to let go of COVID and vaccines, whether they're efficacious or not, and whether, the way it was handled here with science and media and so forth was the right way. I want you to just hone in on the feeling that you got. And I know that many of you had to make decisions based on, losing your job, based on, not being able to be with your families, based on pretty severe fears. Okay. And that is something where you could see yourself letting yourself down. And I want to point out to all of you, because many of you have lots of life experiences in this way, that you had to do things even though they weren't really representing who you are. They weren't really your truth, or they weren't really your integrity. And this energetically, this rips a hole in you. This leads to you having to fragment this, having to compartmentalize this, and saying to yourself, okay, that was just because. All right. And these rationalizations, they are ultimately the ones that we carry around as baggage. Every time we justify something, every time we defend something, and even every time we speak against something else, yeah, basically every time we judge something, we are energetically aligning ourselves to that. And the same with some of these more unconscious things. So every time I say to myself, well, I had to do that because, all right, I am aligning myself to the cause. And the problem with the cause is that now that the data is clearly showing, yeah, that all our worst fears are coming true, that the data was falsified, that it was, that the big parts were omitted, and that basically the whole reason, the whole causation, yeah, for our governments stepping into these emergency powers and abusing them was based on untruths. And this is big, guys, because now you're going to have to reconcile this within yourself. Yeah. And this is why the energetic view is something that we promote here, because when you let go of just seeing it through the lens of your physical health, say, or the emotional impact that something has on you, or the mental combobulation or confliction that it triggers in you, when you look at things in a more expanded and more holistic way, where you integrate the spiritual component and where you learn to make yourself more conscious about what it actually does to you energetically. And energetically is not really woo-woo, guys. Energetically means that you look at your total being and you recognize that you have a conflict and what this conflict does to you on all these levels. And so mindfulness, yeah, that's a word created by psychology, to needs to expand into basically energy awareness or heart awareness, where you look at yourself not just through these individual components, but as a whole. And then you can see, for example, the true damage that coercion or persuasion or rationalization, defending and justifying something does to you. It fragments you. And whenever something fragments you, you are no longer standing in your power. You are giving up a part of your power. And in this pandemic time here, which is a very, very good example, many of us gave up our power of making choices to, these outer causes, these rationalizations, these memes, if you will, yeah, and these mouthpieces of media, yeah, that ultimately made us feel bad inside, but we didn't feel like we had the power to stand up against this. And this is all now literally poofing away. So if you are in a place right now where you are dealing with recognizing how some of your these incongruencies that you felt within yourself about the vaccines, about the mandates, about what it forces you to do, and now as I have predicted, the next level of this is about your money, and your the financial systems, and how data is being handled, and how we are recognizing now that we as individuals are really just being seen as a piece of data that can be manipulated, that can just simply be dematerialized, if you will, yeah, by software. This is something that I will talk about in the forecast for March a little more, because there is something very significant about this. Why I have mentioned before that this is now basically setting the course for the next 10, 20 years. But if you find yourself in such a place, then your job right now is not to go against, like say, these individual pieces of untruths, okay? Your job is to first, yeah, now focus on reinstating your own integrity within yourself. And that requires you to reconcile things. That requires you to go in and talk with yourself and say, look, there were a lot of decisions that I have made in these last 2 years that were actually coming from a place of unconsciousness, that were coming from this autopilot, that were karmic in a way, that were just based on habits and patterns. And I know many of you have diligently worked with this, and this is the beauty of talking to a community like you, because I know that you guys are aware of this, and I know that you have really made an effort. It's this cultivation of investigating how you're making decision, how you're thinking, and what these unconscious beliefs, what they can make you do. And it's a very uncomfortable process. So awakening, which is basically the bigger process behind that, a global awakening, if you will, yeah, that we are witnessing right now, is not what many people believed it to be. It's really waking up to truth. And waking up to truth always means that what was previously unconscious needed to become conscious. And why is that? Because we need to find better ways. We need to find the higher path. We need to find the higher vibratory solution, or else we will continue making these unconscious choices. And I've talked about this in length in regards to the dangers of making unconscious choices, because we have this body mind, okay, that is hardwired, yeah, where our emotions, our thoughts, and our physical sensations are so intertwined that it's almost impossible for us to detect when we make unconscious choices, yeah, when we are on autopilot, because our ego's intention is to actually stay in that unconscious state, yeah. Why is that? Excuse me. That's because what we experience as this inner conflict, as this inner incongruence, is extremely painful for us. It's called cognitive dissonance, where you were experiencing yourself going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth in an endless loop. Yeah, where you are experiencing physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and energetically the schism in you. Yeah, so what we call bifurcation on a global or social scale, yeah, where different parts of the population experience a different version of reality, that takes place within yourself as well. And the way this works within you is that your ego tries to make that go away, that uncomfortable feeling. All right. And that is what leads to us compartmentalizing and, not really being aware of what these limiting beliefs are that we carry around with us that basically promote or perpetuate our karma. So this next week, guys, especially around the middle of the week, is extremely powerful. And when I say poof, yeah, I'm not just referring to like the magic wand or anything. I'm referring to an energy that feels like a detonation. And this is something that I want to encourage you guys to actually step into. The whole month of March is about change, our courage to step into change and detonate the things, the crusty things in us, yeah, these cognitive dissonances, these incongruencies, and all the things that we have such a hard time forgiving ourselves for. And to sit there and breathe through it and hold the space. Because there's a little bit of a vacuum that occurs when you clear out old gunk. In a Native American tradition, many of you are familiar with this, we use sage to clear negative energies or evil spirits. And that's a very powerful conscious choice when you do that, because you're not just using the sage and the feather and so forth and physically or energetically clearing things out. You also aligning yourself. You also claiming the space that you are clearing out. But there's a problem. As soon as you clear out these negative energies, there is this vacuum, and therefore in Native American tradition, as soon as you clear something, you also have to fill it up. You have to allow that space to be conducive, to be receptive, yeah, for positive energies to come in. And that's why we then use sweetgrass as sort of the attractor for positive energies. And this is sort of the tricky part of this week, yeah, because you're going to have to sit in this vacuum for a while. And in my experience as an energy worker, as an energy healer, an energy trainer, this is one of the most vulnerable spaces for us, because most of you are not 100% aware of where your energies go. And what happens then when we experience this vacuum where there's just a void, an empty space, we have a tendency, or our ego has a tendency, to pull the old back in. And this is where you need the discipline now. Not only do you need to, become more aware of your choices, basically turning, all your unconscious beliefs and mindsets into conscious choice. That's a discipline that I've been talking about here all February. But you also need to now be willing, to stay in that space and to allow it to expand. This is a very feminine energy, to allow the conception and the expansion of what happens next. Because the good news is that this is also one of the most conducive and supportive times of the year for you to finally step into your higher potential, if you will, into your higher vibratory existence. Because all this chaos on the outside, all this, now we have war. We actually don't have war. You know that, right? I mean, media makes it sound that way. Unless you live in the Ukraine or in Russia, you're not actually involved in the war. But due to the political elites sort of banding together, in the fight of resources, in the fight of data, and in the fight of, sort of basically the power that is to be, we are becoming pawns in this. And I want you to pay attention to that, because there is something very, very concerning about this. Oh, the pandemic, poof, is over with, and now is the next on the menu. Okay? You need to stay on target with all these things. And that's why you need these disciplines. But if you personally align yourself to your truth, to your higher path, and we all, as individuals, recognize each other being on the same path, we can step into an enormous power, guys. Our power as conscious soul selves, consciously aligning ourselves, not just in resistance to or in rebellion of, no, consciously aligning ourselves to the higher path and recognizing that what is going on here, how corporations monopolizing data, how they are in the beginning steps of creating their own corporate nation states. I've been predicting this for years. Something that you might call the elite conspiracy against the individual. But we are 7 and something billion people on this planet. And our power is that, at least on paper, we can elect those officials. We can put our vote in. We can put in requests. We have to go through bureaucratic processes that are obviously so painful that most of us don't want to do this. But if we recognize the power that we actually have, and this is not just a spiritual thing, this is also a practical thing, to stand up, those of you who went to fight for like an exemption from the vaccine mandates may have experienced this. I have experienced this. That if you don't sway from your integrity, there's nothing the system can do. You have the power to create your own reality. You're just going to have to get over this pain of the past where you became so fragmented within yourself, that you buried these parts. Because these buried parts, these skeletons in your closet, that are basically, culminated in this shadow aspect of ourselves, that they haunt you. They haunt you etherically, they haunt you energetically, and they haunt you in ways, yeah, through other people with similar alignments that, we typically call karma, because they show you there's something there that needs to be reconciled. So your job now is to go into that place, that void, and allow all of you to be there. And as soon as you can embrace these parts and say to yourself, all right, I did what I did at a time where I had less awareness. It was not conscious to me at the time, and I forgive myself for that. And I can now see that that's a part that needs to be invited back in, your sweetgrass. You need to invite these shunned and, basically abandoned parts of yourself back in. Yeah, this is not much that is required here other than actually allowing that. And that, will happen here for us in this next month on the physical, emotional, intellectual, mental, spiritual and energetic level. It's supported. If you can embrace that part, and again here this has to do with these masculine and feminine energies that I talked about in these last weeks, yeah, they are conjoining now and traveling together. And you will want to find that best balance for you. And the way we do this is to consciously focus on our heart. Because if we can be in our heart, not our emotions, our heart, we can tap into this inner guidance, true self guidance, true self interventions that show us where these unconscious, these autopilot kind of choices that we've made in the past, where they're located. It's very, very simple to locate them, guys. It's wherever you feel this inner cringe, wherever you feel this inner resistance, that's where you have something buried. Okay. So my tip for you for next week is to step into this. The most significant question that you need to ask yourself here for this next week, in order to tap into these loving and abundant energies that are coming in for all of us on an individual level, is to focus on your strategy. What is my strategy? What are you applying here? Are you applying the strategy of avoidance? Yeah, a strategy of avoiding pain and seeking pleasure? You know what we call that? That's ego. Or are you applying a strategy of being a conscious, sovereign, self-responsible soul self? Does this choice lead me to more truth, to more courage, to more freedom, to more love in my life, to more growth in my life? Or does this choice lead to contraction? Does it lead to more restriction? That is the only question you need to remember here for these next days to come. And as for your physical responses to this, all right, so the last week was really, really heavy on many of you physically. And again, some of you are still dealing with going through COVID, this Omicron version of this. And I want to send a special message to you guys if you have gotten really demotivated or, sort of run down by your physical condition. Stop resisting your own body needing to recover, okay? COVID is a disease that comes in 3 different parts. One is the viral infection. That's the easiest part. With Omicron, that takes 3 to 5 days, all right? And you do what you need to do. Most of you have prepared for this by taking vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, and making sure that your immune system is in a good place. That's the easiest part. The second part is the inflammatory part. That has to do with your overall state of health, your overall sort of vascular and blood sugar related metabolism. Yeah, mostly basically with your nutritional state. How well have you been taking care of your body in regards to, you know, how many nutrients you get altogether, how well your digestion works, and so forth. So anything that you are seeing here now in that inflammatory phase after day 5, that is indicating to you that there are maybe changes needed in regards to your eating habits, in regards to your overall maybe sleeping patterns, maybe toxins that you ingest, yeah, like alcohol or nicotine or caffeine or other kind of like substances, medications also. Many of you are discovering how harmful some of the medications are that you're taking. And the third phase, guys, is the phase that has to do with your overall attitude to it yourself and to it your healing process. So those of you who are experiencing a prolonged tiredness, a prolonged sort of exhaustion after your COVID infection, you are fundamentally going through your own fears here, okay? Because, and I mentioned this to you 2 years ago at the beginning of the pandemic, that, you know, I've never seen a disease that responds so much to fear energies. Yeah, you basically, you know, what happened here is that you gave up your power to heal yourself in that whole sort of fear porn and mind control propaganda narrative, yeah, that you're going to die if you get COVID, and it turns out you're not. But now all that has to be processed. So with all these fears that you accumulated in yourself, they are now basically being released through this exhaustion that you have, yeah? And if you embrace that, if you just say to yourself, whoa, you know, actually right now I don't need to be afraid anymore, so I can let go of these fears and all these you know, tensions, all this adrenaline that I carried inside of me these last 2 years, okay, they have to be metabolized, man. They have to go through your body. And for most of you, you know, this is not news, but I want to remind you, because in those moments, it's so hard to remember this. Treat your body with more love. Start a habit of talking to your body. Honey yourself. Talk to your body in the sense of like it being part of you, it being your ally. Say, hey, honey, how are you doing today? Oh yeah, I can tell that this is hard for you to deal with because, you know, my ego has decided to hold on to all these things, and now this has to go through you. Yes, I know I have sent you through a lot of stress. I know that I wasn't treating you really well. I hope you can forgive me for this. I consciously want to do better. Let's do this together. Yeah, let's move ourselves, yeah, back into harmony and work with this. Tell me, what do you need? All these things that I am experiencing right now physically, what are they showing me? What are they bringing to my awareness that I need to pay more attention to? I need more sleep. I need more relaxation. I need more focus on, you know, really connecting with myself. Okay, thank you for telling me. Yes, it's so easy to forget that part, Joe. Thank you for telling me. And instead of being all upset that you can't function in the way you want to function, or that you can't perform the way you forced yourself to perform for whatever reasons, you go in and you say, thank you for telling me. Let's do this together. Let's do this consciously here. Yeah. And embrace, yeah, what your body is telling you and become an active part in that. Yes, it will force you to feel more into yourself. Yes. And if that is part of your unconscious checkout patterns, yes, you're going to have to work with that. We call this shadow work, guys. And for all of you who really, really want to work this down to the energetic level, you may have seen this already. We have a shadow work marathon next week, Wednesday to Friday, 3 times a day. We are going to do the shadow work energy process with different emphasis every day. Yeah, many of you are familiar with this format. It's a 72-hour intensive done from your home. If you ever, felt like you really want to dive into this, do this. You do this with me and Jeff together. We give you feedback and guide you through the process of how to reconcile and find the hidden treasure in these fragmented parts, how to embrace them back in. And those of you who want to know exactly, or not exactly, but how you can tap into your self-healing powers and how you can use your own inner guidance and turn this into hands-on pragmatic advice, all right, you can join our energetic tune-up session tonight. This is a once a month session that I do for people, where I allow all these energies of March, in day by day, more or less, to go through me, and then as my capacity as healer, let them go through your energy and form a personal reading for you as to what you need to look out for, what you may have to recontextualize or reframe, and maybe strategies that you can use based on how your energy is responding to these next 4 to 6 weeks that are coming in here as weather conditions. So this is tonight at 9 p.m., guys. There's only last minute tickets available for this. It's on my website, the sign up. I can post this here again. Yeah, so this is a big week. Yeah, stay calm. Don't be afraid of this outer chaos. Yeah, collectively, you can now tap into that sort of beacon of light in you easily. It's super supported. And for the whole entire month of March, you and your soul self have a wonderful relationship here for these next 4 to 6 weeks. But don't resist it, guys. Yeah, embrace it. Thank you, everyone. I gotta go now. This was a beautiful way of conveying things. We will have a forecast discussion for the March energies. I haven't put them in the calendar yet because I didn't know where to squeeze it in. So you'll probably get a sort of a 24-hour notice for it, probably Monday. All right, guys. Have a great weekend and a wonderful week next week. Bye-bye.